Ladies and gents, welcome to the old city of Jerusalem. Today we're learning about life as always. We're learning about love as always. And we're learning about friendships, real friendships. What does the Torah say about the way we relate to other people? I would like to begin with a Mishnah. A Mishnah is, this Mishnah is in Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot, chapters of the fathers, which basically is the best of the best. You're looking for the book, the best of the best. The best of the best of Judaism. Check out a book called Pirkei Avot, otherwise known as Ethics of the Fathers. There you have the best of the best, the cream of the cream, the top of the top, the wisdom of all wisdom. Each rabbi weighs in with their best pearl, their biggest, brilliant, shining diamond of wisdom, and that's it. You only get one shot to say one thing, and it's a compendium of all the genius, wisdom of the rabbis across a few hundred years, and it's in one little book. One book. You can read it and learn from it and grow from it. And there in chapter 6, Mishnah 6, there's a list. There's a list that the Talmud gives you, the Mishnah gives you, about how to become great. You want to know how to become great? You want to know how to live a life where you can absorb the Torah? I'll tell you, says the Mishnah, there are 48 ways, 48 pieces, 48 things that you ought to practices, best practices you ought to engage with. And then if you do, you'll get there. How cool is that, right? In other words, I made all the money. I don't need to keep it to myself. I'm happy to show you how I made the money. The rabbis, they sit down and say, here, let me make the list of how you, Uncle Sam wants you, how you can become great, how you can absorb the Torah. Perek Vav, Mishnah Vav, chapter 6, Mishnah 6. There, a list. Nestled away towards the end of the book. 48 items, action items. You do these things, you'll become so great, you'll absorb a life of Torah, a lifestyle of Torah. All right, well, we're going to look at just one of those things today. The Mishnah has an expression. It's 4 words. These are one of those 48 items, action items. It's called Nosei Be'ol im Chavero. Nosei Be'ol im Chavero. Chavero. Anyone speaks Hebrew? I'll translate for you. Nosei means to carry. Carry. Ol means a burden. Im, with an ayin, means with. Chavero. What does chaver mean? Friend. Chaver is a friend. Chavero, his friend. In other words, to carry your friend's burden. Your friend is carrying a burden. If you carry your friend's burden with him, alongside him, you help him with his burden, then you've taken a step towards greatness. That will make you great. To help carry your friend's burden. Now, let's stop right here. Show me the guy that doesn't have things that weigh on his shoulders. Show me the guy that doesn't have problems. Show me the person that doesn't carry burdens in his life. Which person doesn't have things weighing him down, troubles that are difficult for him? Show me that guy. I don't know that guy. There is no such guy. There is no such guy. Every person struggles with different things in life. Everyone. Different things. And you know what? Everyone's problems are different. Some people have, I can go through, life. Some people have problems with their, financial issues. Some people have difficulties with their families. Some people have difficulties with their relationships. Some people have difficulties with self-control. Some people have difficulty with education. Do I need to continue? Everyone has difficulty, different types of difficulty. I have difficulty with my kid. She has difficulties with her mom. He has difficulties getting a job, right? Everyone has difficulties. That's it. Everyone has problems and burdens and struggles. And you might say, Okay, that's their problem. I got my problem. You get his problem. I have nothing to do with him. His problems are not my problems. Says the Torah, says the Mishnah. You want to be a real, true blue Jew? Consider this. Consider shouldering the burden or helping your friend shoulder his burden. You'll tell me that's silly. That's silly because I can't do anything to even help him. What am I going to do to even help the guy? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the first thing about finances. You get it? In other words, I don't know I can't help it. I never had any kids. I don't know how to help with this kid. I don't know. I don't know. I've never been. I don't know how to help him. I'm not actually able to help him. So what is this? What is this concept of holding and helping him to carry his burden? That sounds a little silly to me. Gentlemen, let's think about this topic for the next, few minutes. And I really hope that we're going to learn something. Not only are we going to learn something philosophically about Judaism, now we're going to learn, something about the theological principles in Judaism, about how a Jew lives. I think that we're going to actually very much, if we open our minds and ears and eyes and hearts, I think that we can learn very much. We can learn about our own lives. We can learn how to upgrade and improve our own relationships with others. And truly, as the cliche goes, make the world a better place. Not just the world, but our families, our environment, our friends, and our communities. Truly make our world a better place. Let's start from the beginning. It says in the Torah, there's a mitzvah in the Torah to help another person who is carrying something heavy. Let's start very simply. Okay? You want sources? I'll give you sources. Okay? You can check it out. First one who finds it announces it. In fact, actually, I actually found the page for you. It says I'm going to quote two fast, quick sources. It says in the book of Devarim, page 1050 in the Blue Stoner. Everybody open your stoners. Okay? The Blue Stone Chumash. There you have it, page 1050 on the top line. It says, if you see the donkey of your friend, forget your friend, even the donkey of your friend, page 1050 on the top there, the donkey of your friend, and he's struggling. Your friend's donkey is struggling with a burden. Says the Torah, well, help them. Help your friend's donkey. Well, pardon me, I don't want to get political or anything about it. If you have to help your friend's donkey, what does that say about your friend? Do you see that? If your friend's donkey is struggling, you should help your friend's donkey. Okay, well, is there a step hopefully a little closer to you? Hopefully you're closer friends with your friend than your friend's donkey. If you have to help your friend's donkey with his burden, well, then you have to help your friend with his burden. You follow? Okay? Lift your and let me give you the flip side. I'll just show it to you because again, I found the page for you. How about, check this out, on page 434. Okay? This is Exodus chapter 23, verse 5. Incidentally, the previous verse was Parshas Kisetse, Deuteronomy, chapter 22, verse 4. And this verse is Exodus chapter 23, verse 5. There, again at the top of the page, there it says, if you see the donkey of another person, even someone you don't like, incidentally, you see another person and he's struggling with its burden. The donkey is struggling with its burden. Wouldn't you help them? And the Torah says these beautiful words, Azov to Azov imo. Translation, Azov to Azov imo. You shall surely help them. Okay, these are two somewhat similar scenarios where an animal is struggling with the burden. The burden is too heavy, right? We can't get, so let's make this real. Okay, your friend is trying to carry his suitcase. You see him he's carrying his packages, his suitcases, his boxes. He's trying to get it into the back of his car, into the back of his van. It's heavy. You see, he's like really struggling. There's a mitzvah in the Torah. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to help them. Hey, looks really heavy. You say, oh, okay, so nothing to do with me. It's not my suitcase. He says, yeah, but it's really heavy for me. Help the guy. You see someone struggling here on the way to the hotel, right? You see these moms like struggling with a baby carriage or baby stroller trying to get it down the stairs. You're like, oh, that's not my baby. So what? But you see, hey, isn't it natural? Like, hey, can I help you? Can I help you carry that? Can I help you? There's a mitzvah in the Torah to help someone who's struggling with a heavy burden, right? Physical burden. Let's start simply with a physical burden. Someone's carrying something too heavy for them. Help them. That's a mitzvah in the Torah to help someone else who's struggling. Simple enough. Truly simple enough. But the Torah, as we're going to see, adds to this. The Torah adds to this and explains to us that it's not just a physical burden. You know, as a psychotherapist, I experience a lot of people's difficulties. As a rabbi here at Aish Torah, I hear a lot of people's life stories. I think everyone in this room would agree that although sometimes it's difficult to carry something heavy, I think everyone would agree that the burdens they carry in life, the difficulties, the worries, the problems, the psychological burdens that we carry in life are much more difficult for us than, having to schlep our groceries or suitcases or move around our furniture. Would you agree? To carry the burdens, the difficulties that rest on my shoulder, that it's heavy for me. It's heavy. It's heavy for everyone. Everyone has their struggles in life. And the Torah says, and I'm about to show it to you in a very profound, beautiful section that we're about to learn together. The Torah tells us you should help other people with their struggles. Not just their physical struggles, but with their emotional struggles. And let us take a look, without further ado, let us take a look at a section of the Torah which is the prominent Torah reading of this week in the synagogues. Synagogues around the world, kind of like coming to a theater near you, coming to a synagogue near you. Check it out. In the synagogue, we learn the story of the Jewish people in exile in Egypt and under the Egyptian whip. And each Jew is like suddenly forced with hard labor. Now there was one Jew who was safe. There was one famous Jew who you all know his name, a famous Jew who was actually, by an incredible turn of events, he was safe from the taskmasters, those jailers, those brutal, vicious slave masters who would whip the Jews and say, carry more, right? Build faster. Who was that? A man named Moses. How? Why? Moses was Jewish. The Torah itself tells the story. Moses, again, an incredible story, was, for lack of a better word, abandoned by his parents in order to save his life. Kind of like the Nazi, the Jewish mothers in the Holocaust who gave their babies away at the last second to Gentile families, abandoning them in order to save their lives. Because they loved them to save their lives. And they perished very quickly after that. They gave their babies away. So too, the mom of Moshe knows that the Egyptian police, we'll call them the Gestapo, right? The Egyptian police are hot on their tail and coming for their baby. So she put him in a little bassinet, in a basket, and put him into the river, right? Kissed him goodbye. What a painful story. And then the Torah tells us what happened. The daughter of Pharaoh herself, the princess, the daughter of Pharaoh was swimming by the Nile, and she sees a little baby in a bassinet, and girls are girls. And she's like, oh, look at that. oh, cute baby. And she sees him and she figures out what's going on and who this baby really must be. And she takes him for herself. And secretly she raises him. Not only that, the Talmud says she converts to Judaism herself. And secretly, under the nose of Pharaoh, literally in the castle of the king, in the palace, in Pharaoh's palace. Isn't that amazing? That itself is a twist of Jewish history. Unbelievable. In the palace of Pharaoh himself, Moses was raised as a Jew under Pharaoh's nose. Now remember, Pharaoh wasn't Jewish, so he didn't have such a big nose. He didn't have such a big nose. I mean, under his nose, how big was that nose? I mean, how much? And yet, even his little small Gentile nose is still, he still didn't notice little Moses growing up in his palace. And Moshe, a Jew, is free. He wears, he can do what he wants. He's free to roam as he wants and do as he pleases. He knows he's Jewish. And listen to what the Torah tells us. My friends, turn please to page 299 in the Blue Stoner. Let's go. Shmos, Exodus chapter 2, verse 11. Here we have it. The Torah tells us Moses grew up. He lived in Pharaoh's palace. And he went, as he grew up, he went out. Vayihi bayamim ha'en. Vayigdal Moshe. Moses grew up. Vayetze elecha. Listen to these words. Vayetze elecha. Moshe went out to his brothers. His brothers were out. He would look out the window of the palace in the fields where Jewish men and women were being tortured and forced into terribly excruciating labor. And Moshe would see. And what would he do? Watch what the Torah tells us. Watch. He was safe in his palace. He's doing fine. He's listening to music, He's playing tennis, they're serving lunch, and then they're going to go swimming, and everything. That's it. He's a prince. What does he do? He sees the Jewish people suffering. He cannot stay in the palace. He bolts out of the palace, even though he has complete immunity. And he goes into the fields with his brothers. He sees what's happening to them. He cannot control himself. He cannot hold himself back. He goes out to join his brothers. Now, this is what the Torah tells us, but it's the Medrash which really enlightens us. It's the Medrash which really enlightens us in an unbelievable way. And I photocopied it for you. So please, everybody, turn to this page. Okay, it has two sides. The page in front of you has two sides. Please turn to this side. Okay, this side, the one with the high margin on the top. Okay, look what it says here. Everyone see it? Okay, first the Medrash brings these verses. Okay, it says, and it happened in those days, Moses grew up and went out to his brothers, and he saw their burdens, right? Okay, first, and we're reading from Medrash Rabbah, Shmos Rabbah, Perek Aleph, Os Chav Zayin. Look what it says on the top here. Okay, just follow me on the top because it's photocopied. Follow me on the top. The Medrash weighs in. How old was Moses in this story? How old is he? The Torah itself doesn't say. And incredibly, the Medrash says Moses was 20 years old. Guys, 20 years old. How old are you? 27. All right. Okay. How old are you? Vlad, how old are you? 22. How old are you? 21. How old are you? How old are you? All right. How old are you? All right. We don't have to ask everyone their age. How old are you? You guys are young. Moses was 20 years old. And he's like, hold on a second. My brothers are suffering. No, God didn't tell him to go there. No one screamed at him. He can do whatever he wants. He said, he sees what's happening to his brothers. He goes out. Now, listen to what the Medrash discusses, okay? Because I want to show it to you because I have a lot to share with you. Look down on the bottom. This is so beautiful. Every Jew should know this. Watch this, okay? What is meant? It says, Vayar b'sivlosim. He saw their suffering. What does it mean? He saw their suffering. Watch. He saw their burdens. It means the following. I'll read and translate. Shahaya roa b'sivlosam uboche. Moshe would see them carrying their heavy burdens, and he would cry. Moshe would cry. He would share their sorrow. He would cry. He would say, Chavali aleichem. Oh, woe unto me. Whoa, it hurts me. It hurts me that look at you, my brothers are suffering like this. It hurts me. If only I can suffer with you. Now Moshe is immune. Moshe doesn't have to work. Moshe will be pulled back to the palace. He doesn't belong there, right? They're gonna say, "Where's Moshe? He's missing." Right? Moshe had to go back to the palace, and yet he would say, "If only I could take your place." Now watch what the Medrash says. There's no work as hard as the working with clay. Apparently, that's extremely difficult and burdensome labor. But that the Israelites had to fashion into bricks. And Moshe would lend a shoulder and assist each and every one of the Israelites. This should be underlined. Moshe would go into the field. There were hundreds of thousands of Jews. Every Jew he would see, he would go and he would put his shoulder, literally, he would put his shoulder under the burden of the other person. He would literally carry the burden with them. That's what he would do. Okay? And the Medrash actually expands on this and explains. Here, look, go down 2 lines. Moshe observed a heavy load on a child and a small load on an adult, right? Because they were trying to, the Egyptians were, it wasn't by accident. They were specifically trying to burden, right, and gave people tasks that were too difficult for them. So he would see a load fit for a man on a woman, and a load fit for a woman on a man, right? And a load fit for a young person, an old person on a young person, and a young person and an old person. So what would Moshe do? He would set aside his status, and he would go and rearrange the different people's burdens, right? And he would pretend that he was assisting Paro. In other words, again, the same concept. He felt the pain of his brothers. He would literally be nosei ba'ol im chaveru. He would carry their burdens. And he would say to them, I'm sad with you. I'm crying with you. I feel your suffering. I feel your pain. My friends, every single one of us have relatives and friends and neighbors and people who we know in our lives. Every single person we know has their own struggles. Everyone. Now, whether you know it or not, whether you feel it or not, depends on one thing. Depends on whether you are vayar b'sivlosam. Depends on whether you open your eyes to look and see what they're struggling with, because there isn't anybody free from struggle. I promise you, your mama struggles with something. I promise you, your brother struggles with something. I promise you, that's the way that God made the world. Everyone has their own difficulty. If you don't see it, that's just because you're not looking. Vayar, to go out, vayetze elecha, there are people out, everyone has their own struggles. You go out there and look to see how you can help them, and look to see where they need help. Maybe they need help physically, maybe they need it financially, maybe they need it, psychologically or medically or emotionally or whatever. Everyone has different ways where they suffer, and sometimes it's very obvious. It's very obvious what they're suffering with. You say, "What can I do? What can I do? I don't have a ton of money. How can I help them? I'm not rich. I'm not richer than them." Listen to what the Torah tells us. It's such a profound insight that we're learning in this Mishnah. Nosei ba'ol im chaveru means you don't have to help them necessarily. If you can, great. If you can't help them in any physical, material way, you could help them simply by helping them to shoulder their burden. If their burden is psychological, so for you to just somehow share their pain, just put your shoulder underneath their pain, to share their pain, to experience their difficulty with them, just to feel their heartache, does something magical. You know what it does? It takes away some of their burden. It lightens their load. They're carrying a very heavy load. If you just emotionally shoulder it with them, well, what happens is it lightens their burden. Okay? So in other words, again, just like Moses shows us that you can literally shoulder someone else's physical burden with your physical shoulder. True, but you can also shoulder another person's emotional burden. How do you do that? Well, you can give them a shoulder to cry on. Shoulder. Get it? Shoulder and shoulder. Give them just a shoulder to collect. It's not going to save them. Someone's sick. You can't help them. You're not a doctor. Yeah, but you gave them your shoulder to cry on. Oh my gosh, have you helped them? You say, I didn't help them at all. Wrong. Wrong. You very much helped them. Very much. How did I help them? Their burden is so much more manageable now that they have your shoulder to lean on, your shoulder to cry on. Just the fact that you meet someone and their car broke down, you're not a mechanic. But even if you stop and you say the 3 magic words, you ready? Very, very sophisticated word. Very sophisticated. You ready? You might want to write them down. I don't know if you remember. I go like this. Oi, yoi, yoi. That's it. Oi, yoi, yoi. What does that do? That doesn't solve their problems. Oh, you don't understand. You don't really understand life, do you? If you just say ay ay ay, and you really not just say it, you experience someone else's difficulty and trial and travail and challenge, just the ay 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 itself, their burden is so much lighter when you're done. So much lighter. How do you do that? If you step into their world. Guys, here we have it. Here's Judaism at its finest. Just to enter their world, just to step into their world, just to put yourself in their place. In your own mind, put yourself in their shoes for a moment. What would it feel like? Ask yourself, what would it feel like if I lost my job? Ask yourself, what would it feel like if I lost my love relationship? What would it feel like for me, God forbid, right? If I lost my loved one. This person is in pain. So there's nothing you can do to help them. There's everything you can do to help them. Just to feel their burden. And I want to tell you a true story about someone I know very well. Very well. Okay, he's a rabbi. I know one of my rabbis. Okay? There was a different rabbi. I'll call him Rabbi A. Rabbi A tragically lost a child. Tragically in a car accident. A beautiful young teenage girl who was killed in a car accident, hit by a drunk driver. It was a tremendous tragedy. My rabbi came to do the mitzvah that many of us know about. It's called Nichum Avelin, right? Someone sits Shiva for a lost relative, and you go and comfort them. What are you going to say to someone who just lost a child? Is there anything you can say? What can you say to them? What can you say? What can you say about her? What can you say about life? What can you say about God? There's nothing to say. Their heart is just totally broken, right? Just in pieces. It's a true story about my rabbi. You know what my rabbi did? He walked into the house. He sat down with this family, with these parents. He didn't say a word. He sat down and he began to weep. And he cried uncontrollably. It's such a moving story. He cried and cried for 10 minutes like a baby. And then he got up and he walked out. He didn't say a single word. But you want to know something? My rabbi's a real Jew. To put yourself in someone else's, just to feel someone else's pain, that's called nosei ba'ol. That's like Moses. To feel, to carry, just to feel the pain of another person. And you know what? When you do that, somehow that person just feels better. Right? As a therapist, I mean, that's part of what therapists do, right? They just, even if they can't help a person, they could just hear someone who's listening to them. I meet a lot of people. No one even stops to talk to them. Right? This is the concept of healing other people's pain, even if you cannot resolve it. You cannot resolve their difficulty in any way. Right? He feels a little less lonely after you talk to him, after you sit with him. Right? And his problem seems more manageable than before. You know, if I can use an expression like this, the Torah teaches us, if you're writing, write this down. The Torah teaches us to practice empathy over apathy. Practice empathy over apathy. Either way, you can't do anything to fix it. Okay, but you could be apathetic or you could be empathetic. And I want to tell you where else we see this. I want to tell you where else we see this. If you turn over your page, the Talmud tells us, there's an expression in the Talmud that speaks about experiencing the difficulty, not just even of a single individual, but even of the Jewish community or the world. When people suffer, when there's a community that's suffering, people are suffering, how should you experience another person's difficulty? Even if you might not even know that person. Look what it says, and it's in brackets on the left side of the page. It says the following: at a time when the community is steeped in distress, in other words, there's a problem, there's a crisis facing the community. Suddenly, there's a crisis. Suddenly, there's a tragedy. So, this is the Talmud. This is the Gemara in Tainus. See it on the top. Tainus, page 11a. Page 11a. A well-off person should not say, "Hey, it's not my problem. I live in a different city. Oh, the communities, the people suffering. Oh, but I live in a different country. I live in a different city. I live in a different neighborhood. I'm not suffering. There's no fire in my backyard. There's no hunger. There's no flood. There's no where I am. There's no problem." Don't say that. Says the Gemara. No. A well-off person should not say, "Hey, I'll go to my house. I'm fine, and eat and drink and peace be upon my soul. I'm all cool." And the Talmud says, if a person who does that, he's living he weighs in under par as Jewish behavior. Okay, under par. Now it's Gemara. The rest of the Gemara is cut off, and you can see it's photocopied. It's skipped down to the next thing. But it's under that line. The Gemara continues a bunch of lines later, and the Brisa continues. Follow me. The Brisa continues. It says, what should a person do? A person should suffer along with the community. Now watch this. For we have indeed found regarding none other than Moshe. Now you think, I know what we're about to see. The Gemara does not bring the example we just gave. It gives a different example of Moshe. Watch this. Rather, a person should suffer along with the community. For we have indeed found regarding Moshe, our teacher, that he suffered along with the community. How? Because in the narrative of the battle against Amalek came to attack the Jewish people. And what did Moshe do? Remember, anybody know this story? I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you in a moment. What did Moshe do? Moshe said, the Jewish people have to defend themselves. We're about to get killed by the Amalekim. So they said, okay, we're going to go to battle. But Moshe was old and he was the leader. He himself wasn't going to the battlefield. In other words, he himself wasn't actually holding any weapons. The Jewish soldiers were. But he was, like in the command room. He was the leader of the Jewish people. Okay, and what does he do during the battle? Watch this. And it says, in the narrative of the battle against Amalek, that Moses came and he's watching the battle and he lifts up his hands. He lifts up his hand and he's praying for the Jewish people. And he's tired because he's standing there. So they brought him a stone. Watch this. And they took a stone and placed it underneath him and he sat on it. Now Moses is, so to speak, the king of the Jewish people. So to speak, the president or the prime minister of the Jewish people. And what does a prime minister sit on? What does a king sit on? What does a leader sit on? A nice, very comfortable leather armchair, right? I mean, he's a leader. And he's sitting on a stone, on a rock. Very uncomfortable to sit on a rock. So the Mishnah said, the Gemara says, did Moshe not have a pillow? You put something on the rock to make it more comfortable for the leader, for the king of the Jewish people? Rather, no. Moses said, no. The Jewish people are struggling. They're in distress. If they're in distress, I'm in distress. If the people are struggling, then I'm struggling. I want to tell you a true story of a very dear friend of mine. A true story of a very dear friend of mine. Everybody here knows that a year ago, 2 years ago, there was a war after October 7th, right? And everybody knows that there were captives, innocent Jews taken captive, held underground for approximately 2 years. 2 years. A very dear friend of mine said, what can I do? I'm safe and sound. He lives in a free city, he lives in a place where there's he's not captive, he's not hurt, he's not in trouble, no one came for it, none of his family members. He's totally fine. Everything's perfect. He has his job, he has his wife, he has his family, everything's perfect. He said, yeah, but what was it, the 200 of my brothers and sisters are underground and taken captive. I can't, like this Gemara, like this teaching, I can't just do nothing. I feel the pain. But he took it to the next level. He didn't say, oh, I feel the pain emotionally. I want to make sure I don't forget, and really, I want to make sure I experience the pain. He did two things. First of all, he took his mattress, he took it off his bed. He didn't sleep on his bed for 2 years. I know the person. For 2 years. 2 years he didn't sleep on a bed. Until the last captive, right? Was brought back. That's number one. Number two, he would fast a few times a week. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't drink. So he's lying on the floor, and for a whole day, twice a week, no one knew. Nobody knew. He would fast. He wouldn't eat. He would spend the day in fasting twice a week for 2 years. I know this person personally very well. For 2 years. You know why? Because the people who are suffering, if they're suffering, I'm suffering. If they're sleeping on the floor, so I'm sleeping on the floor. To experience the pain of another person, that itself, cosmically, even if they didn't know it. In other words, that's the chiddush of this Gemara. Even if they don't even know, nobody even knows that you're struggling with the other person for the other person. Okay, but that itself shows that I feel the pain of somebody else, right? Because if they're suffering, I am suffering, and that is the experience of Moses, and Moshe. This is Moshe teaching us and showing us how to live as a real Jew, to choose empathy over apathy. And this is not, I want to tell you something else. This is not just Moses. You ready for a wow? Let's open the book of the Torah again. God comes to visit Moses, and he says, you know what, Moshe? I need you to save the Jewish people. The Jewish people are in deep, deep trouble, and I need you to save them. I need you to take them out, get them out of Mitzrayim. Okay, this is featured prominently at the beginning of the book of Shmos. And let's take a look on page 300. Page 300. Everybody, open your book, please. Page 300, chapter 3, verse 2. Verse 2. Okay? Here we have Moshe minding his own business. Remember, he's not part of the Jewish people right now. Right? He's in his own place. He's far off from the Jewish people. And he's in the desert, shepherding his sheep. And he encounters God for the first time. For the very first time, God comes to meet him. And the Torah says the following, and follow me inside because it's such a profound teaching. Okay? In verses 2 and 3. God sends an angel, and then God appears to him. He appears to him in a thorn bush. God appears to Moses in a thorn bush. A thorn bush. Okay, and famously, you can see it in front of you, this thorn bush is burning on fire, and the fire is not being consumed. And then God speaks to Moses from the thorn bush. Now, just imagine for a moment. I mean, what's the song they play? You know, what's that melody they play when the President of the United States shows up? Was it Pomp and Circumstance? Do you know what I'm talking about? I hereby present to you the President of the United States. You know, there's a song that plays. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, when the president walks out, he walks out with, with royalty. I mean, when the king, the great kings, majesty, honor, parades, crowds, beautiful, nice red carpet, beautiful flowers, flags, right? You get it? We're talking about the first showing, so to speak, of God to Moses. God's about to meet Moses. If we show honor to a king, a physical human king, a finite king, okay, who has fears and worries and problems and weaknesses, and he's frail and fragile, and his wife thinks he's a loser, he has bad breath, and he poops, and he's going to die, and he gets sick. He's a weak dude. Oh, but we honor a king. Nice. What? God, the King of Kings. I mean, he's infinite, perfect, right? I mean, don't you think he deserves honor, like how big should his throne be? Yeah, if the king of whoever his throne is this big, how about God? God, infinite, Almighty. You get it? The Almighty God Himself. He's going to present Himself to Moses. He's going to have a little convo for the first time. Okay, and how does God show up? God shows up sitting in a thorn bush. In a thorn bush. I mean, God, I think, you can do a little better. I mean, you're God, public relations, you're the king, you're the infinite almighty power of the king of the universe. You can do a little better than that. Yeah. How about at least, something nice, a palace? God, you're going to speak to Moses for the first time. You sit in a thorn bush? That's how God presents Himself, in a thorn bush? In a pokey, disgusting thorn bush? I mean, how does it feel for you to be in a thorn bush? You'd feel like a loser. Would you show up at a wedding dressed like a thorn bush? Do you see what I'm saying? Not very complimentary. And that's how God shows up, in a thorn bush. And Rashi right here, and the Chazal, the Gemara, right here, okay, in chapter 3 of Exodus, verse 2, tells us, why is God showing up in a thorn bush? And the answer is, because God is an unbelievable, profound teaching. Rashi quotes the verse in the book of Psalms, chapter 91, where the principle that everything we've learned today is going to be upgraded right now. Where the verse says about God, Imo anochi b'tzara. Translation, God says, I, God, experience other people's sufferings with them. I, Imo anochi b'tzara. I am with another person when they struggle, when they suffer, when they feel pain, when they're having difficulty. I, so to speak, bend my shoulder. So, it's God. But so to speak, to experience that suffering with them. So you know what God does? He says the Jewish people are suffering. The Jewish people are being tortured. Jewish people are being poked and beaten and hurt. So you know how I feel? I want to model for you, Moses. I want to show you how I feel. I want to actually tell the Jewish people how I feel. Here's how I feel. I feel like I'm stuck in a thorn bush. Have you ever been stuck in a thorn bush? It's extremely painful. You're like getting poked and pricked and hurt, and you're bleeding and you're wounded, and it's like you're in a lot of pain. Oh, that's right, and you can't move because it's like whatever. That's it. That's how God feels. You know how God feels? God feels the same pain that the Jewish people feel. When you suffer, God also is suffering. Aha! So now what? Well, if God is suffering with another person, so then we have a new principle. We have a new principle, which is be like God. One of my favorite mitzvahs. I love that mitzvah. It fascinates me. It says in the Torah many times, V'halachta b'drachav, be like God, imitate God. Whatever God does, you should do. Well, guess what? Nosei ba'olim chaveiro means to carry and shoulder the difficulties of another person. That's what God is doing. How cool is that? How cool. That's what God is doing. Right? The Bible says in the book of Jeremiah, okay, that the Jewish people famously went into exile. When they did, Medrash tells us at the beginning of Eicha that Jeremiah himself, even though he didn't go into exile, the king of Babylon literally dragged the Jews in metal chains, in neck collars, like a metal yoke, like a cow, right, in order to humiliate and denigrate the Jews. They literally left not just foot chains, but neck chains, like animals, literally like animals, right? By the thousands going into exile into Babylon. And you know who was safe and saved? Even though Nebuchadnezzar, the wicked Nebuchadnezzar, leader of the king of Babylon, he was hurting the Jews, but the chief prophet of the Jews, his name is Jeremiah, he was free. He was free. He wasn't part of it. And yet, Jeremiah ran after the Jewish people and said, I'm coming with you. And he would put his neck underneath. He would put his neck into the chains with them. And they would take him out and says, no, you're not part of this. He'd say, no, I am part of this. And he would put his neck. He wanted to share the burden of the Jewish people. And you know what we say? We sing it in the songs on Shabbat. B'tzarasam lo tzar. B'tzarasam lo tzar. Translation, God himself felt the pain of the Jewish people. When they went into exile, God also went into exile. God also. So it was Jeremiah and God. Both of them were accompanying the Jewish people into their pain and with their suffering. They also feel the suffering of the Jewish people. But you see, what I want to show you for this point is, you see the parallel between God and man? That's us. That's us. We carry that legacy. Carry that legacy, the dynasty of being godly, of being divine, of following the ways of the Torah, to experience and to feel other people's pain alongside of them. That God was also shouldered the pain of the Jewish people in Egypt, as you can check it out in Exodus chapter 24, where there's a description of God having a big brick. A description of God having a brick in front of him, holding a brick on his lap. A brick? He's God, yeah, but the Jewish people were burdening carrying heavy bricks. You know what God does? Even though he's God, but he had a brick in front of him, just to remember the fact that to never forget, even for 1 second, the Jewish people are suffering. I'm also suffering. I feel what they feel, right? Whatever other people feel, I feel. And you know what? If you look in the Tiferes Yisrael here on this Mishnah, he describes how the way, just to summarize, the way we do this is when other people struggle either physically or emotionally. Physically, shoulder the burden with them. Emotionally, shoulder the burden with them. Financially, shoulder the burden with them. You'll say, I can't help them. Well, try, as the Torah says in Vayikra chapter 25, verse 35. I think it's a very powerful verse. It says, it's on page 702 if you're interested. 702. It says in the Torah, if and when your friend will struggle financially, v'hechazakta bo, you shall help him. You shall strengthen him. How should you strengthen him? Well, ideally with money. Be nosei ba'olim chaver. If someone has a big debt, so help him with his debt, even a little bit. Show him that you care. He has finances. He's struggling with bills. Help him, even if here, take $50, take $100. It's not going to pay everything, okay? But I'm showing you that I care. And let's say you have no money. Let's say a guy comes to you. I'm collecting, but you have no money. Okay, but you have no money. But you can say, oh no, you're in debt. You're in crisis. You're struggling. Oh no, how can I help you? Maybe I can get you a hot drink. You came to knock on my door. I have no money for you. Can I get you a coffee? Can I get you a tea? Can I give you something to eat? You're struggling. Show him that you care. And you know what? There is one more angle. There's one final angle to way to look at this. And I think that it's very often overlooked and underplayed by people. And that is to experience other people's emotions in a way which might seem a little less urgent and a little less, even somewhat less likely, okay? Less likely. And that is when another person experiences, you ready for this? When another person experiences joy. Joy. See, we think, this person lost his father. There's a funeral. I want to be there for him. And beautiful. This person's sick in the hospital. Let me show them. Let's just go visit. Even I can't heal them, but I'll just go show them that I care about them. Beautiful. But there's another angle here that we don't think about it as much. And that is, what happens when something wonderful happens to somebody? Do you know, listen, consider this. Do you realize that it's impossible to fully experience something joyful alone? Think about it. If you win the lottery, what's the first thing you do? What? You call your mom. You call your girlfriend. Imagine you had no one to call. Just think about this for a moment. Just imagine for this, right? I have no friend. No, I can't reach anyone. I'm like going crazy. I had a baby. I need to talk. I want people to experience my joy with me. I can't actually fully experience my joy to its fullest without other people. How interesting, how fascinating is that of a psychological observation is that? But it's true. Can you imagine you make a wedding? You get married here. You get married. Okay? And you invite everyone to the wedding and no one comes. No one comes. It's just you and your wife. Like, what kind of wedding would that be? Think about that. We need other people to experience our joy with us. Go be happy with another person. Someone got engaged. Go express your joy. Show them how happy you are for them. Go dance with them and hug them again. Show your excitement. The truth is, you know what? You kind of want to get engaged. And actually, there's a part of you that says, hey, wait a second. I'm older than that guy. I'm better looking than that guy. I have better people skills than that guy. Why is he engaged and I'm not engaged? I kind of I don't even want to show up to that guy's engagement party. I don't even want to call him out. I don't want to show him. Wrong. That's not Jewish. That's not being righteous. Put your feelings, put your own life circumstances to the side and go dance with them. Go experience their joy. Just like it's a mitzvah to go experience the pain, go to the funeral of when they lost a loved one. When they get engaged, go dance your heart out. Go show them how happy you are. And I think that naturally people are more want to it calls them more to shoulder. If anyone's going to listen to what I said today, it's going to, oh yeah, okay, fine. My friend is suffering and struggling. I'll help them. I'll share their burden. But when they make a bris, when they get engaged, when they have a baby, when it's something good happens to them, when they have an accomplishment, when they got a new job, what do they need me for? I need to go to the kiddush. I need to go to the wedding. I need to go to the bar mitzvah. They're happy without me. They're not going to notice me anyway. Wrong. And the older I get, the more I see this. The older I get, the more I experience the truth in this deep teaching, so deep, to experience the joy of other people. And indeed, the Sefer HaChinuch, in Mitzvah Reish Mem Gimel talks about this, and the Rambam, Maimonides, in Hilchos Deos, chapter 6, halacha 3, talks about this as well, that part of the mitzvah of interacting with other people is not just to feel their pain, but to feel their joys. Because that's what it means. Your pain is my pain, and your joy is my joy. And we're brothers. And I'll close with this. Last point. I'll close with this. There's a teaching. If you read the Bible in Genesis, God speaks to Abraham and he says, I'm telling you now, it was predicted. People don't know this. It's predicted in the early conversations between God and Abraham. God says to Abraham in Genesis chapter, 17, I think 16. God says to Abraham, I'm telling you now that the Jewish people are going to go into exile, into servitude for 400 years. Now, how many years were the Jewish people actually in Egypt? How many? Anybody know? Ridu Shama. Ridu is Gematria, 210. The Jewish people were actually in Egypt for 210 years. So everyone asks, wait a second, they were actually in Egypt for 210 years. But God said that they were going to be in Egypt they're going to be in exile under suffering for 400 years. So how do you make sense of that? Many different answers. One answer, if I'm not mistaken, is from the Maharil Diskin. It's so profound and so beautiful. Listen to what he says. He says it's true. God says you can have 400 years worth of suffering of Egyptian slavery. But you know what? When the Jews went into slavery, one of the things that they felt strongly is they're going to feel other people's pain. So each Jew who lived in Egypt for those 210 years, they felt their own pain, but guess what? They also felt their friend's pain. If I carry all of my pain and I experience all of your pain as well, that's double the pain. That's double the pain. In other words, we had double the burden. Our shibud, our burden, our suffering was twice as heavy, and therefore we finished in half the time. You follow that? Therefore, we finished our struggle of shibud, the Galus Mitzrayim, in half the time. So instead of being 400 years, it was 200 years. But obviously, you'll ask the obvious question, but wait a second. So it should have been 200 years. Why were they in exile for 400 years? You want to tell me that everyone carries the burden of themselves and their friends, so that's double. Okay, fine. So instead of 400 years, it should be 200 years. It was 210 years. So he explains, you're right. That's because a person manages to feel another person's burden, other people's pain. It's hard to feel it 100%. They felt 100% of their own pain and almost 100%. There was like a little percentage, right? Do the math. There was a little percentage of another person's pain. I couldn't fully shoulder and experience every last ounce of your pain. So they ended up being there 210 years. But most of the pain, they did feel. It's a beautiful beautiful idea, beautiful concept, explaining another way to answer this question. My friends, I bless you and bless you back. I bless you and bless you back. First of all, to have great friends who experience our joys and experience our suffering. There is no greater friend. There's no more real friend than someone who's nosei ba'ol im chavero. That's what it means. Chavero. If someone's really your friend, then they're sharing. Every birthday, they experience your joy. Every graduation, they experience your joy. And every difficulty and sorrow and trouble and disaster, they feel that as well. And for our purposes, we should be that friend to the people around us, to the world around us, and bring more of the glory of God's divine behavior into our human experience. Thanks for listening.